I can't think of a single thing that you can get only at GDC versus elsewhere that justifies the fact that GDC is by far the most expensive event that we've ever done.
Butterscotch Shenanigans. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 545 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the weekly podcast for indie game developers. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artist.
And today is October 31st, 2020 vibes. Let's get into the news.
Let's go!
Now, if you're a regular listener, you might be like, what the hell just happened? We've had the same intro for this podcast for
100 years.
A long time. We're changing some things up. So, deal with it. Speaking of changing things up, GDC.
GDC.
All right.
Queen of the Dragons?
Game Developers Conference has been a mainstay of the games industry for, I want to say, 35 years or so.
I think it's been forever.
The 90s, right?
Yeah.
It's been doing its thing for a long time. And when we started making games, we were like, we gotta go to.
We started in 20. You guys started in 2012.
Yeah.
When was your first GDC? Was it 2013, 14?
2014, I think. Yeah. I think in 2013 we had released Talifite 2, and then we went right into Quadrupus Rampage. So we were like, we didn't have any games out, and I think we had like $2,000 total.
Yeah.
So we were like,
Couldn't make it to San Francisco.
no way we're going to GDC. We also didn't know about it. We didn't know anything. But after a year, we learned like, oh, there's this like place that game developers go and like meet each other and learn stuff. And we were really interested in going there for the talks because we didn't know anything. And we were like, we should hear from people who know stuff. Right.
Yep.
And so we went every year until COVID happened.
Yep.
And then we haven't.
Well, then 2020, you gave a talk, but it was just digital.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to give a talk in person, and then, of course, I had to record the whole thing and put it on YouTube. People can go see that. It's called Stress-Free Game Development. I think it's one of the better...
50,000 views or so. It's a good one.
It's about DevOps and sort of like streamlining your game development strategies. But what I want to talk about with GDC is the changes that they've made over the past month to kind of like what GDC is, kind of a rebrand, and whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, if you're an indie dev right now and you're like, should I go to GDC? Should I? That's kind of what we're going to get into a little bit, right? Given the changes that we see. And there's a lot of, I don't know, we'll say perhaps PR missteps on the part of GDC, which I'm like GDC, and I think those obfuscated some of the changes, some of the importance of some of the underlying changes that they made.
They created an unstable emotional foundation for people to evaluate what they were doing.
Well, it's also people don't trust. What's the name of the company that owns GDC? It's like Info something, whatever.
I don't know. They sell your data every time, so it's
they sell like so. Yeah, there's that bit, but also people just don't trust GDC already because GDC is historically just it's misstep after misstep. There are aspects of it that have just been true that people have been frustrated about. It being in San Francisco, it being expensive, and the way they've treated people giving talks in the past, because it wasn't paid until very recently. They didn't pay for you to give a talk, but then they would lock your talk behind a paid vault that they got all the money for. It's very capitalistic.
There was stuff like if you gave a talk at GDC, then you would still have to like pay to see it in the vault.
Yeah. And you had to pay to get yourself there, and if you were giving it, because even right now, they'll pay you for a talk and they'll give you a ticket to go to cover the attendance of the event, but you're still getting yourself there. You're still paying for your lodging.
You're still dropping
by the time you do all that,
$700 a night on a hotel near the convention center.
You're still way out in your investment. So there are these aspects that people have been historically very frustrated by, and and we experienced this ourselves in the decade we were going to GDC. As they're trying to get their money from different parties to just for the event to run in the first place, but also they're trying to make money off of the event, right? And so what we saw as attendees was like, oh, now every time we talk to anybody, they're just trying to sell us ads. Oh, now they're trying to sell us NFTs. Oh, now they're trying to sell us AI. Now they're trying to sell us VR. You know, like it became like the first few years we were there, it was this really cool, fun experience where we were going to talks and we could sit down at any table, start talking to people. Hey, they were also game devs, and we could talk shop about game dev stuff. And then by the time we stopped going, it felt like every time we talked to anybody, they were trying to sell us something. And so people were already increasingly frustrated with GDC, and then this marketing campaign.
Well, I guess it explains the shift that they wanted to do, right? Explains the shift. So they recognize this, you know, perhaps with all the drop off from COVID, stuff like that, where they're like, all right, we need to rebrand this bad boy into something that people maybe actually
Which is funny because it's as if the brand is the problem, right? Rather than what they're doing.
A lot of structural things.
Well, a rebrand is just like a way of messaging to say that you're changing things,
correct.
Right? So
yeah. So, but what did they do? So this is kind of what we get into. Let's get into the details. So they put out a video about the fact that they were rebranding, right?
Yeah, like a month ago. So the video was just like it was no real details. It was more of about imagery of them like conveying the idea that GDC is going to be changing. And so
different now.
So in the video, they have stuff like a billboard that shows like GDC, and then like a giant fucking monster comes in and just like crushes it. And
I
then
think the first one was a UFO. I think.
Oh yeah, they also had that. Yeah, they had a UFO come in and just like obliterate it. Right. So it's basically all it was just like images of GDC as you know it, but kind of looking like a little bit battered. You know, like the sign is not pristine, you know, and all that stuff. It's kind of like looking old and it's got some wear and tear. And then these like otherworldly demonic evil forces come in and just fucking destroy it. Okay. And they were like, we're rebranding. And that was it. And everybody was like,
show like anything.
They announced
new
that it was
afterwards?
Festival of Games. No, it was just this imagery and then Festival of Gaming.
Yeah. Okay. And then they put out like a very brief kind of like a press release kind of a statement.
The classic corporate saying absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah,
kind of a,
basically just saying like
things.
we're gonna be reorienting the Festival of Gaming, GDC Festival of Gaming, more toward businesses and more towards like established people in the industry, something.
Which is fine. Except what does that mean, right?
Yeah. So then there was no real details until about a week ago. So it was maybe like 4 weeks or something after that announcement.
It feels like it's been a long time, but
so it's just this long silence of people who were understandably a bit anxious, where it's like if you're a smaller indie, you're wanting to get established, blah blah blah, and you're counting on GDC as being like, this is where I'm going to go to like make connections and learn stuff and blah blah blah. And then suddenly, or maybe you have been going like we had been going, you know, year after year after year. And then suddenly, all you know is that it's just different.
It's been obliterated by Godzilla and aliens. That's all you know.
Yeah.
Right? No,
and so they gave people this long period of time to just kind of, I don't know what the word is, but just kind of like just build up anxiety and get increasingly pissed off and speculative about what this means.
And that's true. But it was also the case that they did nothing about it.
Yeah, they just left it there.
They didn't just leave it there. They kept going, right? Because I didn't see a single positive response to that first video of the UFO blasting the billboard. You know, it was funny, right? Because everybody agrees that like GDC is messed up and needs to be rebuilt. It needs to be remodeled. Sure. Something has to happen, right?
Yeah, you think everybody would be excited about it, right?
Yeah, but because it contained no information about what was going to happen, and people again do not trust this entity, then what do we do with that? And so I saw universal disdain and mockery of that first release. We heard nothing. No attempt on their part whatsoever to be like, no, actually, this is fine. Let's actually communicate some details so you understand that this is fine. Right. And then they put out another like one or two similar videos, right? As it like basically they had made all of these already. They'd presumably hired some really expensive marketing firm, ad agency or whatever to put this campaign together. And they were like, well, we're just going to, the whole thing felt so corporate and exactly the way you'd expect them to behave, right? Is like not listening to anybody who has anything to say.
You're saying they're like, baby, I'm going to change. But while they're doing that,
they're demonstrating the same problems that everybody's mad at them about.
I still can't listen, but I'm changing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly.
So they did that. It's the classic kind of corporate, like, we're just telling you what we're doing. We're not
We don't care.
we're
what
not
it is.
receiving any information. We're just gonna keep going, blasting
Right.
forward.
So,
But we
so
finally
get this
got those
month.
details, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the month of simmering ends, and then what comes out?
then
with
they unveiled the new passes and pricing and information, because like at the end of the day, you don't need to read any articles or anything. You just need to go to the GDC website and just look at what the passes are, and then just decide like,
that? Is this
is
good?
that for me? Is that good?
Mhm.
And so let's just go take a look
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
passes.
Outside of the PR misstep they had, which is insane. What does this look like actually for you as like a possible indie dev going to GDC this year?
All right. So the way that it used to work is there were some like really low end passes that were very cheap. So I think the cheapest back when we were going was $150. It probably went up a bit in the past.
I think it was
few years.
$250 by the time we stopped going for the Expo Pass.
And so the Expo Pass. So the way that GDC works, for those who haven't gone, is there's a big old convention center at Moscone West in San Francisco, and that's where all the talks are. There's the second floor area where people kind of gather and hang out.
Unless Stadia comes in and rents it out, so nobody can
Unless
sit
they
down.
rent it out to Google, and then you can't go there anymore, which happened one year. And so in kind of like in different wings of that convention center, they would have like an indie hall where like if you had the indie pass, then there would be like indies, like speakers related to indie game stuff, and you could go there. You might get like an all access pass, which would let you.
And
just
also
go
the
to any
indie talks
talk.
were only on like Monday and Tuesday or something, or something like that.
There's a time gated aspect to a bunch of the passes. Like a lot of the content you'd only be able to see for like a day or two. So indie stuff was Monday, Tuesday, I think. The expo itself, I think, didn't open until like Tuesday.
It was like
or
Wednesday.
Yeah,
it was like Wednesday through Friday or something. Yeah.
So very confusing, frankly. Pass structure, and one also that like if the goal of a conference is to make it so that everyone's around each other, really fucking weird. Because now like everyone's actually
segmented.
fully segmented, but also like just not in the same place at the same time.
But also, it was also the case of the value of the all access pass. The stuff that it gave you was like, oh, now you can go to all the talks the whole week, but so many of those talks are just people trying to sell you stuff, right? And so it didn't actually give you it didn't give us something we were looking for. What we wanted was access to our biz dev partners and to the talks that we were interested in. But over time, we became less interested in talks and more interested just in business partners. But our business partners also knew that so many people they wanted to meet with aren't going to buy all access passes. So they're all set up in like random hotel lobbies and like they're basically around GDC but not actually in it, because in it is so inaccessible that it's just better to be like, yeah, you got an expo. We just assume you're either just here and don't even have a pass, or you're here with an expo pass. So we're set up like in basically a way that people can have access to us without being gated behind an all access pass.
Yeah. So traditionally, then what I would say is that a lot of you could buy an expo pass just so you could essentially enter various buildings, right? But much of
you were technically an attendee,
Yeah, technically attendee. Much of the B2B stuff happened outside of the actual confines of any of the GDC convention centers. So literally, like there's like 4 different hotels. There's like a West End or something right next door. There's like 4 different hotels adjacent, and each one of them kind of like has like a different flavor. Like Nintendo and Apple were in one of them. Like all of the like EA and Giant like publisher execs were in like a whole different building. They never even like stepped foot in the center.
All the sort of Saudi family,
all those money. Yeah, exactly. So like there are these pockets that are already outside of the convention center, but that only exist because everyone's going, right? Which is an important note. Just like
because the idea is like everybody is in the same city in the same neighborhood,
right,
at the same time, or overlapping, a day or two at a time during that week, and so it creates this kind of sprawling, externalized business to business thing.
Yes, and I think importantly, when you're going as an indie, especially like our first couple of years, our expectation was that by having a pass and like sort of wandering around talking to people, that the people that we needed to meet with, so platform partners like Steam, Apple, Google, that they were like, that they were in there somewhere.
Yeah, around.
Yeah. And the reality we learned, which is one of those like just naivety things I think about how business works, was that those people are not there. They're not in the building typically, unless they are giving a talk or something like that. They
don't want to be swarmed.
Yes, and they are most likely having wall-to-wall meetings for the entire day,
pre-scheduled wall-to-wall meetings.
Yeah, we're talking from like 8:30 until like 6:30 p.m. and then like every 30 minutes some new dev comes into to a hotel room to pitch them on something or just to catch up about whatever's going on.
Yeah. And so by attending GDC, then you're in the same place, so you can go to a meeting that you have arranged.
Yes.
But they didn't give us the ability to have
Stumble
a meeting
into it.
exist that we didn't already have.
Yes. So on the bottom level, then the Expo Pass is gone now. There's no like $250 pass, right? There is now the bottom level is well, I guess there's a couple different versions of it, but I think I want to break apart the functionality here, which is like at any pass you buy gives you all access to the talks for the whole week. So if you have a ticket and you go, in whatever format that is,
almost all the talks.
Oh yeah, right. But you can go to almost all the talks for the week, and that means, and then there's a scale on that. Basically, that what you could think about as that ticket price. So it's like the base level one is just like the festival pass, right, Seth? And how much is it?
Yeah. So the base one is the festival pass, which is, and this is another branding problem. Is on the site they list the festival pass as $1,200, which is expensive as fuck. Except they've crossed it out, and it's actually $650 up until February 20, which is right before GDC.
Yeah.
So basically, what they're saying is, if you buy the ticket at the last minute, we'll charge you double. But if you're actually planning ahead, we won't.
And again, because people are mad at how expensive GDC is, if
They're
you present it as the tickets are $1,200, but you get a really steep discount, like people are still mad because like, what do you mean $1,200? Like, that's actually what everybody's focusing on, rather than actually, in reality, what a pass actually, ignore the fucking stupid, it's $1,200 crossed out.
Yep.
So this is actually cheaper than it used to be for this amount of access.
Yes.
So this
Really
$650 pass. So that's because the all access pass used to be like $2,000 or something. It was like it was bad.
Yeah, and there are cheaper variants of that. Basically, if you're an indie studio who's been around for less than 5 years and is small, we don't count anymore because we've survived too long. I guess.
So they do have their early stage indie pass, which is $450, which is the same as the festival pass. It's just cheaper if you've been in operation for less than 5 years. You have fewer than 50 employees, and your company, and you're like working on behalf of a company that's not owned by a larger company. In other words, you're an independent studio, right?
Yeah. And I will say, if we're going to get into the details as we go, like I do hate this because think about how many, almost everybody we met at GDC, all the indies that we met were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them struggled and then got kicked out in less than 5 years. That's certainly true, right?
Yep.
But the ones who'd been in there for more than 5 years weren't like the people who like you hear about. The extremely successful ones, they're not even going to GDC, right? They're because they don't want to get swarmed, right?
You're not going to see the Silksong developers at GDC.
Yeah, you're not going to see that. So like the people that you're seeing are like they're and there's a range of success.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I was gonna say,
maybe you will. Maybe you will.
But they're going to be doing business meetings. They're not going to be milling around. Yeah.
And so I mean, there are successful small indies there, right? Who have been there for more than 5 years, who don't need the discount. That's true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But most of the indies who are there, who have been around for more than 5 years, could really use that.
Yeah, the 5 year marker is definitely a weird one. Yeah,
it's bullshit. It should just be a size of your studio marker. That's all there should be.
Yeah, if you're independent and small, it's cheaper.
They're trying to scrape up that extra little bit of money from everybody,
silly.
Which is
just. I think the framing though is like importantly is that is a better deal. Like for us in particular, that's a better deal in terms of just general access versus cost than anything we've had in the past.
Yeah,
sort of like apples and apples, right?
Yeah.
Typically, what we do is I think the 1 year we bought like an all access pass, which was like $2,200 for some crazy shit, and then we would just pass it around to each of us.
No, we got one because it was people giving talks because we got all access passes because you guys gave talks.
Yeah, we never bought the all access pass because of the price.
Yeah, so there's basically the indie tier there, and then there's like a student tier, which is even lower. So that's actually that's like good. You know what I mean? That's actually pretty good, especially compared to what was previously.
The downside is just the lack of the Expo Pass, which was like
even lower.
Yeah, because with the Expo Pass, you could basically just like get it for cheap, and then you could just go into the convention center and mingle. You couldn't go to any talks whatsoever. Yeah, and so that's the bummer, and I definitely understand people being frustrated about losing like that sort of like very, very bottom tier. Like I just want to like be in the area.
I mean, it was the ability. It was basically gave you the ability to get access to parts of buildings that were otherwise not available to you. And again, for like the last few years that we went, that was all we wanted, was exactly that, which means that for us, practically speaking, GDC would now cost about
like
two or
200
three times as much per ticket as it did before for us accomplishing the same goals we used to have.
Yeah.
So that's a bummer.
But I do think there's basically the next tier up, which is the passes, again, crossing out their stupid discount thing is what, like $1,700?
So the top, this is now the top tier.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily just the next tier. It's the most expensive pass is $1,700. And again, like you're saying, they're pretending it's $2,500 and that you're saving a bunch of money. And you're getting this discount to $1,700 by buying it before February 20, which again,
it's just $700. Like
such a dumb framing. Yeah. So it's so
double the cost afterwards instead of having the cost beforehand. You know?
Yeah, the top pass. They need to call it like a last minute penalty instead of
late fee,
instead of an early discount because the pass is $1,700. So that's quite a bit. So what do you get? What are you getting for the $1,700? So for that is you get a subscription to the vault, which this is a separate kind of this part is a little bit goofy, a little bit dumb. So they have a digital pass that's $800. That gives you a year of vault access, and it looks like I have the thing open here. So it gives you a year of vault access, and then just like access to the GDC app for AI-powered networking, which I don't even know what that would possibly mean for a digital pass.
If we know anything about AI, it won't be a good experience.
It won't be good. So basically it's like you can pay like $800 to get vault access. If you get the festival pass, the middle one that we were talking about for $650, you can go to all the talks just about, but you can't watch them later in the vault for some reason. So then the Game Changer Pass, the top pass, is it gives you that vault access. See, then basically over the course of the next year, you can go back and watch every single talk that you missed, whatever. But they also then have various like networking events for like high-powered business people, basically, right? So it's they're trying to basically like stratify out like the people at the top of the industry from the common folk, right? And like create kind of like a more businessy layer on top of this pass.
Which actually, I mean, again, given what we said and what we talked about as far as like what the reality of what's already happening at this conference previously, which is that stratification is already present. It's already present just in hotels outside of the conference center.
Yeah.
It stands to reason that that's not, it's them trying to capture some of the value they're creating, right? From bringing everybody together in that context. But more importantly, it's like by purposely trying to bucket it and be like, we're creating spaces for this stuff to happen, right? We're creating these, like, we have business rooms for you guys to do business at, as opposed to before it's like free for all.
So here's
your own hotel room, right?
Here's what I'm dubious about though. Is like what we've seen is like Apple will rent out a building.
Yeah.
Steve
do their meetings.
will rent out a building. Like all these the actual like platforms that you really want to talk to, they're not just gonna be hanging out in the exclusive lounge set up for people who bought the Game Changer Pass. They've got their own spaces entirely.
But also, why would they? They're not having random meetings.
That's what I'm saying, is like what you're going to probably have is like a bunch of people who all bought that top level pass hoping to meet like high power people. And they're all just going to be together meeting with each other.
Which could still be good,
Still good. Like it's always good to like meet people in the industry and who are trying to like do stuff, you know? But I think the value of that isn't probably going to be realized in the way that people might think, because you're still going to have to go out and go like set up those meetings separately to go meet with.
That's the tricky bit is like, because so even in our case, we're unusual in the sense that we haven't worked with a publisher. So most independent developers are not independent to the same degree, where they're typically most independent devs are working with.
We almost did with Netflix. Almost.
Yeah. Right. Right. Trying to close right. So like we're a bit unusual in the regard that like we don't have there's a layer that's very common for independent developers, which is a publisher layer, right? So you make the game, you manage all that stuff, and then you work with someone to help bring it to market. And you could see, you can see that space being used for that because it's like,
Yeah, there will
like
probably be publishers
effective.
there. There'll probably be a lot of
But-
like ad companies there as well.
yeah, but I think the ones that you would know about, so like your Devolvers, your Raw Fury, whatever else, Team 17, again, are likely to just have their own hotel rooms outside of the space because it's just easier to manage and work with. You don't have to futz with anything. And so, yeah, I think to your point, it's like who will be showing up at that at like business oriented one, given that the biggest people who you probably want to talk to already would benefit better from not going there and instead going to these other, like having their own little thing, on the side. And I don't know, like it's tricky. The sense I get from it is that, like we've gone to DICE a couple of times, and that's a conference that is in Vegas. It's in like just a hotel there. There's no like external conference happening along with the conference. Like the conference is the conference. So it's not like San Francisco GDC where there's so many people there that there's like a whole other carnival outside of it, outside of the tickets. It very much is like you pay for a ticket, now you have access to talk to everybody during these things, and like there's just the whole thing is within the parameters of the event itself. And that tends to be it's very high level. So like C-suite people, typically publishing heads, whatever else, it's very concentrated in terms of like, I think the ticket was $2,200, something like that, last time we went. Yeah. And if you go to that, like you can actually just accidentally end up talking to Google or Apple or Nintendo, whatever else, right? Because they are actually just hanging out there. And everyone's got meetings, but it's a much more, I don't know, it's not as like dislocated because the quantity of people is not so high. So I think what's interesting.
Well, the other thing is like GDC has a lot of what I would just call vendors.
Yes.
So it's like there'll be like
engine
ad
sellers,
companies,
ad
people,
sellers.
yeah, people with third-party tools or programs or hardware or whatever, trying to rope you in, right?
Yeah.
And that's not really the case at DICE. DICE is
because there's no expo hall. There's
DICE
no
is developers.
It's all developers and all publishers. And so what I think is interesting, it feels like they're trying to get that, again, they're trying to get the fact that is happening at GDC, but completely outside of the scope of the conference itself. They're trying to get that layer and make it kind of structured and like assist with that actually happening, right? I think you have the big question, which is like, it was just given how GDC works, is it actually the case that those people are going to show up in that like business class ticket? Or are they still just going to do their thing in their hotel rooms?
They're still just going to do their thing. Yeah, I think this is.
Well, it's the historical, like, because everybody will have to be bought in on the idea that this will be somehow more productive, right?
Yeah.
To let GDC manage it. But again, nobody trusts GDC as an institution. So even if you thought maybe they could, you've already got a system. And also, is GDC, like the institution, going to make it cheaper for you if you're Apple or whatever, right?
Yeah, Apple, a $4 trillion company, is going to turn and be like, we'll just let GDC handle this. Yeah, these especially these big companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees, whatever, like they are very into the idea of control, right? Like they will pay top dollar to create their own space, staffed by their own people, scheduling their own meetings, and they'll be there next door, but they're not going to GDC. They're like a Remora, they just kind of latch onto the side of GDC, set up all their meetings and do their thing. And nothing GDC does will change that really, and what I think is kind of weird about the rebrand is I've always felt like GDC was the place for people to like learn about becoming game developers and grow and kind of like build their network, make friends in the industry, et cetera, et cetera.
It felt like it was nurturing the up and comers, right? More and then celebrating the games, right? Was kind of the core of it.
Yeah. Not even about up and comers, but also about like people who make games talking to the people who make games about how to make games, right? As in, like,
it's the game developers conference.
Yeah, so there was like a beginner, but I think when GDC first started, it was really for like people very squarely industry who were making stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true. But it's nurturing, I guess, the like connections, nurturing connections within the developers of the industry, right?
Yeah,
like that's kind of
but the problem, of course, is it's a lot easier to make money business to business. If you can let people who are trying to sell people things pay you a bunch of money to go try to sell people things, and that's that's what GDC, and maybe it always was, at least to an extent, but that's certainly what it is had become, and we watched that become just more true in the the decade, or I guess the less than a decade, the 6 years that we were going, year over year. It just became increasingly true that we were trying to go meet other people who we could. Again, we had two purposes. One was the business to business side, which we didn't really think it was part of GDC. It was just like everybody's there at the same time. Therefore, the platform people and the gatekeepers are also there, so we can have all of our meetings and do all that kind of stuff while we're in the same place, right? But we didn't really think of that as like part of what the GDC as an event was. That was just like, that gets to also happen right while we're there. And GDC as an event was like, oh, we get to go learn about what like interesting problems people have solved,
meet with
stuff we might not know about, and just meet other devs so we have a better foothold in the industry, and have people we could potentially hire someday, people we could potentially work for someday, people we could just learn from, right? And that year over year was increasingly difficult. The way that they've rebranded this thing feels like it's going to increase that difficulty, if anything. Like, I don't really see how this solves the problems that your average attendee has about GDC.
Well, I think baseline though, the fact that like if you buy the pass, you can actually be doing stuff every day of the festival, which is completely different than it used to be.
I think that middle pass, that $650 pass, I think is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, because it actually gives you the ability to just be around the other devs and learn from everybody and talk. I think that actually does meet that. I think the question of whether or not, if you're like an indie dev and you're trying to get those business connections, if the stratification is worth it, right? If buying into that higher level pass would be worth it, that's just like real dubious.
Well, because the other thing in that high level pass is the Luminary speaker series, which is like they're selecting certain speakers where they're like, these are super important people, or they're like, high level people in the industry, and you can't see their talks unless you pay top dollar, unless you buy that top pass. But it's like, if I'm speaking at GDC,
I want people to go to my talk.
I don't want to be.
That's what I'm there for.
I want to be in the place where I can get an audience, and I don't want to have like only 10% of the attendees be even eligible. Yeah,
that one I don't get. I don't understand who that's for in any direction.
Well, like, that's going to be, to me, that's the DICE piece. It's like, so DICE is like the keynote is like Tim Sweeney. You know what I mean? Like we are talking like top of the pile of people in terms of like decision makers and industry stuff.
But at the moment, I guess they haven't listed who the luminaries are.
That's the problem.
Like, so you got to kind of just like buy the ticket in advance and be like, I hope somebody.
Yeah.
But again, like going to see a talk by Tim Sweeney is cool.
Yeah, it means different things. Right? It usually means nothing for you.
Yeah, like
anything.
Are you going to take away another like $700 worth of value from that? Or
what you actually want would be to go to a talk run by whoever's running a store specifically, right? Yeah. Running the B2B ops of a store, not Tim.
But Tim Sweeney technically does.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like the talks that are at that, like that feels like we're saying like, oh, these are talks for C-suite to talk to C-suite or whatever, right? They don't even do that, and if they do, they're going to go to DICE to do that, right? Like that's what that whole event is for. I just don't understand.
I think that largely the problem with the way they're rolling out information is the fact that they're rolling out the information. And so instead of being able to say like the luminaries would be worth it because, there's Team Cherry is giving a talk. They're giving a talk on like anything, but like one of them's giving a talk in the luminary series. It's like, I might buy a ticket because I want to be able to see that. I want to sit there and like see that. But is it just like, is it Tim? Is it like whoever the new CEO of EA is, or that Unity guy who
is it people who are going to give you talks that tell you nothing, and even if they did, couldn't be applicable to your your situation?
What is it? And I think the problem is like they've just been slowly doing this, and so even if it ends up being the case that they're like luminary talk, the luminary list is like all bangers. Maybe they actually bring in like some of the best indie devs that have been given talks in the last like 5 years. They bring in like some like, I don't know, our guy at Steam who we know directly, like one of our Steam reps who's like giving a talk on store management stuff. Like they have like a banging series of talks guaranteed to be hits, and it's all useful stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And you're like, I might not be able to get into it unless I spend extra $700 because everybody will want to go. That said, will you be guaranteed to get to see it even if you spend extra money? No, because they'll definitely sell more tickets and they've got seats.
Yep. This is like if there was like a concert, right? And they're just like, hey, a concert's coming. Yeah, the tickets are $1,000.
Some tickets are $10,000.
Who's going to be singing? Who's the bands? You'll find out. Like once you buy. Well, actually, you won't find out once you buy the tickets. You'll find out like 2 months before the concert happens.
And technically, if you
know?
buy that $10,000 ticket, you will be allowed to sit in the front. But if you don't get there first, you still might not. So,
yeah,
because
so
that
it's
actually
like,
has been a
this
problem
is
in the
just,
past.
It's just
is that-
such a
it's
weird-
been for
I
the
do
really
know-
popular talks. It's been hard to get into them, and
Yeah,
sometimes you just
so-
can't.
true.
So that
Yeah.
will be a bigger problem this year. That's really important to know. It's like
Yeah, 'cause
attendance.
now if all the tickets let you go to all the talks, then now you actually will get to go to less talks
Probably.
potentially.
Yeah. That's literally what happened. Like all of the talks typically that we really, really, really wanted to go see. If there's like basically an indie headlining something, or some very specific weirder thing we wanted to see that a lot of people were into, the lines are always out the door. And like if you're not, they only let so many people stand in the back. And then
So
you
that's
just
why you
go
buy
in.
the Game Changer pass, because then you get vault access. You can go back and watch that talk that you missed.
Well, you can also, I think that isn't the second level one lets you get like priority access to talks or something.
Let's see.
I think that's what I believe that's what it said. Like underneath the luminaries talks thing, it's like priority access to.
Oh yeah. The top level pass does.
Yes.
Top. I thought you were saying the second level pass gives you priority. No, yeah, the top level one gives you priority entry. But again, it's like you won't get priority over other people with the same pass. So
Yeah. But it's part of
so-
the problem, right? Because if they do a good job selling those really expensive passes to people who really want to go to a lot of talks, they're going to go to the talks that everybody else wants to go to. And so now, if you're still paying the $650 for a ticket to go see everything in theory, but can only see the second or third thing that you want to see, right? Like the whole thing to me is there's a problem with gating information behind things in this way, and that's effectively what GDC is. It's a way to basically say like, hey, if you pay us extra money, you get to have access to this information. And if
Yeah,
you
except
don't, then you don't.
usually, given our experience there too, is that because of how it's run, it's not an infinitely scaled physical space.
Yep.
So it's just not the case that like some of the talks that we were most looking forward to before going to GDC, we did not get to go to, right? So like, it
It's
doesn't
not even
matter.
just because it got filled. It's good because there wasn't like there was also a competing talk happening at the same time.
Yeah,
or
all sorts
because
of
we were
reasons.
across town for a business meeting and we couldn't get back in time. Like there are all these things that make it so that, and so like and that's to me the idea that middle pass, the one that gives you access to everything, doesn't give you vault access is
It's crazy.
Again,
crazy.
the whole thing is stupid. It's stupid and dumb. And they like almost improved things, but because it's GDC,
they got so close.
couldn't
So
quite
close.
do it.
Yeah. So I guess, but on a high level. So let's say let's break out a couple tiers. Like let's say we're just starting. We're some fresh-faced little babies for coming in here. I mean, maybe we're starting right now in our 30s, but so we're some grizzled.
But we're still
faced
fresh-faced babies, because
Yeah.
we have a good moisturizer routine.
That's true. So we're like, whoa, we're indie devs. This is supposedly for devs. Should we go? Like, would you guys go if we're in year one? Maybe we haven't got a game out yet, but we're like trying to figure out some of these parts and pieces.
So
I
if
feel
we were
like-
year one, then that would put us in the indie tier. So that would cost us
$450 a person.
a person.
So
yeah.
also bearing in mind that if you're from another country, you're going to run into some other issues because
Yeah.
this is in the U.S. and
The U.S. is a little not good right now.
put
for
it lightly,
traveling.
this country's fucking stupid right now.
Yeah. So
So
Barring
that's a whole separate set of issues that you'll have to sort out. And then the cost of the hotels. It's like when we were going pre-COVID, before everything doubled in price, we would stay. There was a place called the Good Hotel.
it was not very good.
It
I
was
wouldn't
great.
say it.
The
I like that they shot for right in the middle for their branding. I was like, it's
Yeah.
a good hotel.
It's not great.
And they didn't quite hit the bar that they set themselves.
Didn't really have
fairly
didn't
low.
have working AC. The beds, the rooms were so small that you would step off the bed and then you couldn't stand with like both feet on the floor next to the bed because the bed's so close to the wall.
Yeah, one of the rooms was mildewy one year that we went.
Yeah,
to.
so
There's
like
people fighting outside. Not great.
Yeah, there were a lot of people fighting.
you'd hear
outside.
fights. Yeah, so that was like
Yeah.
$450 a night.
Which is
per
crazy.
Yeah,
And that was
the best
one
deal
of
we
the-
could get without being
because-
like just in another fucking
Yeah,
state. Basically,
And that was like a half-mile walk or
Yeah.
something.
it was about 20 minutes for us to walk.
Days
may-
more
maybe
than that,
something.
I think it's about
Yeah.
a mile.
Yeah, it's a ways away. So if you're staying like walking distance from the convention center nowadays, I'm assuming a place like that would be $600 or $700, maybe more per night, and then you got your plane tickets as well. So yeah, so you're talking like the passes are actually the cheapest part of this whole.
Yeah.
Yes.
They always
Yes.
have been.
That's what's whenever people are up in arms at the passes, I'm like, I mean, the fact is like being in San Francisco is just a challenge, frankly, for like any
Yeah.
startup that doesn't have startup money, which is like typically what an indie studio is. It's like you might have some shoestring investments from your team, but you don't have a lot of cash.
Yeah, because you're gonna spend a week basically traveling, and then do a week of hotel stays, or
yes,
and so like there's the opportunity cost of you not doing whatever your job is, making video games, right, for a whole week.
You'll be sick for the next week.
Yep, there's your
GDC plague.
Yep. So you're basically going to have 2 weeks of work that gets shot. So the first bet is that losing those 2 weeks of work, you're gonna gain enough from the experience that you're gonna offset that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, if you do GDC well and GDC doesn't get in your way too much, like, you absolutely get, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Those are big ifs, though. It's
you need to sell the games you make. Remember, you gotta sell the games you make at some point. So
and you need to, and like, establishing contacts with new people can be extremely valuable, and both just for you, but also in terms of like some kind of return on investment, right? So like you can. Most people don't, because because it's hard. It requires luck and also a lot of work trying to figure out
stamina,
that stuff.
Frankly,
a lot of stamina, and so it's already the case that, like, on average, you're not going to get the opportunity cost value, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can, though.
Well, I would disagree.
If you figure it out and work for it.
From one perspective, which is it's a retreat.
It is a retreat, yeah.
So the thing about GDC is there's talks. Yeah, there's like business meetings. You can get a lot of value out of it if you're really aggressive about like setting those things up and trying to get those contacts and stuff like that. The value probably will be realized for a long time, because, it's about like making friends and meeting people, and you never know. Like, at one point we like met some guy from Nintendo, and then like a couple years later we started putting stuff out on Switch, and we were like, hey, we know that guy.
And then he moved to Xbox.
And then we had a guy at Xbox.
Yeah.
And so building up that network is really hard to put a price tag on.
It's definitely unpredictable kind of thing.
It almost certainly doesn't happen if you don't go out of your way to do it.
Well, that's my point, is that you still would have to have met these people, right? If you're going to these things.
Yeah. So like GDC is a great catalyst to try to make those things happen. It's not the only way to make those things happen. But for me, actually, one of the biggest values we've gotten from GDC is just stepping away from the work, going to a place where there's just a lot of game dev stuff happening, just like a churn of people talking about stuff and us hearing about how people are thinking.
You're getting like random like street wisdom from everybody. Like, here's what's going on over there. You get all sorts of weird shit. You hear all sorts of stories. It gives you some
new perspectives about stuff that you've been thinking about or working on, or it makes you realize the importance of something that you thought didn't matter. Like, there's a lot of things that just kind of pop out of that, and just like getting away from your computer screen, stopping the work for a week, and just like taking a week to just shoot the shit, talk, and think I think it's really good.
It is really good. But
the question of, is it worth the extreme cost?
Opportunity cost, yeah. Because GDC is not actually structured for that to happen specifically, like, for you personally. It isn't like structured like a camp, you know what I mean? And so the reality is, like, you can also do that by going to like a PAX, or something like that, for a weekend with your dev team. Shooting the shit with other devs on the expo floor, because like Steam and Apple, Google show up to those. Like Nintendo people show up to those. Like,
or you
Xbox
can just go to a cabin in the woods with your team.
Yeah, So I think that's basically the rub, which is like just the fact that it's in San Francisco means the cost is just very high. It's so high, and I think it's probably one of the weirdest things about the whole thing is that the underlying geography here that we're talking about makes it so that even though I would argue that, broadly speaking, that GDC is a very worthwhile thing to do, especially if you're newer in the industry. The fact of where it is located and the expense levered on top because of where it is located means that it has to somehow be like kind of fucking magical, frankly, kind of transformative for you.
Has to be really useful, rather than being a place that could turn out to. Because like in our first few years, like it was, but we were so active in like planning things, trying to meet with people, and it was a struggle. Most people wouldn't meet with us, like it was just like
it was weeks of work what we got out of it, of just working on like planning.
But the first couple of years, almost everything we got out of it was from the retreat aspect, and a lot of that was from us talking to just fellow indie devs, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't like any business to business stuff that really was happening for us in those early times. And if those other things hadn't happened, it probably wouldn't have dramatically changed the trajectory of the studio. It just made things like better. We had more fun. We learned more, like, right? But they weren't like, if those didn't happen, we would be screwed today kind of things, right? But at the time, everything was just more affordable, still really rough, but significantly less. Like I would imagine today, like given like I live in St. Louis, if I want to go eat at a restaurant today, it costs like 50% more than it did 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
If I was to do that, I don't even want to imagine what it would cost, like the per diem in San Francisco just to feed yourself.
Give me that $50 burrito.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's what's interesting is like
a nightmare.
The dice, the difference that the experience I had at Dice was that when the hotel ticket was way cheaper because it's Vegas, so the hotels were like
Vegas
$200
is
a
just
night.
made of hotels. So.
Yeah. In the hotel, I'm not
its
Ubering
job
anywhere.
is to absorb 100,000 people over a weekend.
Exactly. So like, I'm not Ubering anywhere. It's also like Vegas food prices, which at the time, I know they've gone up a lot actually in the last couple years, but like at the time was like pretty cheap, not a big deal. And then, the like basically the ticket price was way higher than something like GDC, but the overall expenditure was less. It was way less.
And
so I think
stress,
that's
because like the amount of stress of trying to like find a place in San Francisco, it's like knowing how much money you're paying for everything the whole time, trying to get a hold of food because the places that are actually proximal to where you are just swarmed because the place isn't really made to absorb as many people as are coming there at a time. Like Moscone as a conference center is, right?
Yeah.
But like the surrounding area, it just actually isn't really.
Yeah.
And so the stress of trying to feed yourself, trying to like get a place to stay, and then just like
it's just the cost of it, dude. Like
between everything is really stressful.
Yeah, and so I think I guess I still have a question, which is like if you're coming in as a newbie and you're like, I want to get some industry connections, like should I go to GDC this year? I mean, can you afford it? Is essentially the first question.
That's the first question. If you would have to generate enough revenue after the fact or because of it to offset it, I think the answer is squarely no.
I think if you have meetings that you can set up ahead of time and you can kind of like get in and out.
Yeah.
Then actually, yes.
If you can, and that's what we used to do too. Like we would only go for like
3-4 days
for a few of the days, and we would pick days where like the cost could be cheaper for travel, and we would try to find ways to.
We stayed at the hostel like twice,
which was not pleasant.
When we were at the good hotel, we just had one room.
We
just one room,
stacked into bunk beds in the indie hostel. It was like $150 a night. But again, that was in 2000.
Yeah, it's probably $300 a night.
15,
probably.
Yeah.
And then the good hotel, we just had one hotel room. So like you can do it cheaper, right? And also depending on where you're coming from. So it's not to say that this is like that the way you have to do it is by spending all of the money, because again, you don't even have to get a pass. I think that's the thing is, I think if you're able to set up meetings and stuff like that you would not otherwise be able to get.
Yeah, which is important.
Which is the tricky
If you
part.
can already set those meetings, you might be able just to have a VoIP call, right?
Yeah.
Which like it's better to have in person. That's true. Like in terms of like the
Very
camaraderie,
true, yes.
right? But not enough to justify the cost of potentially. Because the thing is, like if you're a new indie dev, you're on a shoestring budget if you have a budget at all.
Yep.
And this is the kind of expense that normally you would be like, oh, if I spent this much in a year, but I'd have to justify that, right? So it's an extremely expensive way to gamble. And if that's what you're using it for, I don't think I could recommend that because whether or not you get an outcome that offsets that huge expense that you just put it's frankly not likely. It just isn't. It can happen. It's just not likely. And most of the things that would make it likely are things that you either already lucky for having done, or because you've made a connection and got a meeting established, that kind of stuff. And that's stuff that doesn't actually have to happen there. So if you can afford it without putting yourself at risk, at least historically, it has been and can be a really transformative experience as part of your game dev.
But importantly, and to Seth's point, a lot of that transformational power of it comes years later, unfortunately. And so
you got to still be around. So if you spend all your money going to GDC and then your studio goes under and you got to stop making.
Yeah. And a lot of all the things we're talking about also assume that you're traveling for this, of course, which there are a lot of game devs in California, like around the San Francisco area. So there's differences in terms of like what the reality of those day-to-day costs are for people. But I think given the scale of it, which is like 30,000 attendees, I think last time, something crazy.
Mhm.
I feel like most people have to be coming from elsewhere. You know?
I mean, almost everybody we met was not from California.
Yeah. So I think
And
it's
even if you are, you would still need to be close to San Francisco for it to matter, because otherwise you're still staying in a hotel and
Yep.
doing all that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you got friends there that you can stay with, or you reduce the time. But part of the thing that complicates this is now that the pass is like, now there isn't like the indie tier where Monday and Tuesday are indie talks and you buy an indie pass and you go to the indie talks, right? And it's now the whole week. Then that also means it's not as obvious like which days you would pick if you're going to try to truncate
That's true.
your journey, so I don't know. Personally, before coming into this, I was like, I don't think I can justify us going to GDC with the value proposition versus the cost. Having then had just this long conversation about it, I feel like that's just more true. Like personally, like
yeah, I get you.
I mean, I don't know where you guys are at. Like, do you feel like we should go to GDC?
I think again the problem is a lack of knowledge. It's if I knew
what are we gonna get out of it?
Yeah, also like if I knew what all the Luminary talks were, honestly, that would be something I might be of interest, right?
I'd like to go just to hang out with my bros and meet other indie devs. And just
exactly. Which is what I want. Which is
take
why
a week away from the work.
But there's PAX East up in Boston we could go do. There's DICE, which would be very fun to go do.
Yeah, I feel like we need to go to like a developer focused conference, but there just aren't really, which is funny because we're talking about the game developer conference, right? But my favorite event still that I've been to that no longer exists was PAX Dev, which was part of PAX West.
Yeah, that was the best. Yeah, that was great.
It was a great event. It was mostly like game devs who, it was like fairly well established indie devs and people coming out of AAA, basically, right? But not business people. It was all people making games,
developers. Yeah,
and it was extremely fun. You couldn't turn around without talking to somebody doing interesting stuff.
It's also because it was low
great.
key. It was low key. It didn't cost. Yep. I think honestly that's the weird thing. Is like if GDC wasn't in San Francisco, I feel like I'd be like, yeah, it'd be fun to go.
Yeah,
but it's not because of San Francisco, because there's just the cost layer, right? The cost layer on top of it for 3 people going is just a lot, and so.
So I think we should go to something. That I agree with.
Right.
I don't know that it should be GDC, but
and I guess it's one of the things where I just want to point out to people who are trying to get those initial connections, right? Which is like the way that we started getting all of our connections was via LinkedIn, believe it or not. We even used it to get our Epic one a couple years ago, and and then eventually getting some in-person meetings at some of these events and stuff like that. So
GDC was where we became friends with these people.
Correct. Yeah. Which is useful and great. Yeah.
Well, but also that's why we still can talk to them today without it being this kind of stuffy, high risk feeling.
It's not just business thing.
Yeah. It's just it is truly people that we like and enjoy talking to, who we just also have a business relationship
who
with.
also hold our lives in their hands like a little bird.
Yeah. But I think that importantly is that those people also are showing up at a bunch of other events.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get at, which is if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I want to go to GDC, but it's just so expensive. Correct. It's correct to feel that way. That's fine. And you can probably get the pass. You can get the business connections from setting up ahead of time and talking to people via literally LinkedIn and then going to PAX. Because usually there's a Steam rep or someone going to PAX. Usually there's an iOS or Google person going to PAX, who you can then talk to, and you might have to poke around a bit to find them. But that's the same as it would be at GDC, and that it just doesn't cost you an arm and leg to do so.
Might actually be easier.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at GDC you are competing with 30,000 people.
Literally everyone. Yeah.
And
there are
several
more people.
Small towns worth of people.
Yeah, and there are more of the business people involved there to kind of compensate for that, right? And that's what they're all there for. So there are real benefits to that, definitely, at least historically. I don't know, because once we established our connections there, we just met with the same people.
I was going to say, not really, because at any given company, whether it's Steam, whatever, there's always fewer than 5 people.
Yes.
Who are making the decisions about what games get featured and blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
it's only a few people.
Yeah.
So another question is, for meeting other indie devs,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking think about the people who you still either think about or keep in touch with, other indie devs, right? The ones that I can think of for me personally, I met as fellow booth havers at player-facing conventions.
Yeah.
That's true. Yep. It's because we were forced to hang out. I mean, there's a few from GDC, but it was where we ended up hanging out for some reason, kind of like that, where it was like, you just happened to be going to like a bunch of the same talks together, and then like,
Yeah, well, and I know, like, I met a lot of people at GDC who I enjoyed talking to, but I can't think of anybody just like
This is even how we got Carl and Brian, our QA testers. Was Brian was at a booth in Oklahoma when we were in Oklahoma City, because they were in Kansas, and then
we went to that really weird Oklahoma City convention.
So we even hired some people out of like being booth buddies.
Yeah, which is like, so if you think about it, like, it's like the business connection we made mostly through LinkedIn and then solidified at GDC.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes, I think if you think about like a pipeline, I think that's the thing you need to understand as a new person in the industry, or even if you've been here for a while, you're trying to figure out like, why the fuck do some of these people have connections and I don't? It's because they are capitalized on, they are solidified in in-person events, but they are already, you have to already have them underway before you go. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth the ticket price. Just period. Like no matter what event you go to, frankly. Have that shit locked in.
But like it is one of those things where it's like if you can't get access otherwise, but you can get a meeting because there's a revolving door of quick meetings to discover new things, right? That I think that's the one, like that's the edge case where if that's how you can do it, and you've got something really good to show, because it's going to have to be really good, and if you can do that in a high charisma way, because that's the point of the in-person bit, right?
Yes.
Then that's the part where you could get extreme value that you otherwise couldn't get.
So what I'm hearing is we gotta go get a booth somewhere for how many dudes?
Sounds like it.
I was thinking, it's like when we were trying to, because part of like giving a booth is that you can't, we learned, and I've never seen any evidence to the contrary, that you cannot market a game by having a booth at a convention. I think that's bullshit. I don't think it does.
I don't think there's a real purpose to it.
No, but it's kind of like GDC, right? Which is like, you can't really guarantee.
It's fun, though.
Yeah, and it's like in the same way that the early GDCs for us, actually every GDC, was a really cool retreat where we did meet really cool people and got to swap stories and that kind of stuff, right? Going to conventions, if you're there trying to sell a game, it's just frustrating and exhausting. But we spent so much of our time every time we went just hobnobbing with our fellow booth havers, right?
Yep.
And
then the platform people who happen to be hanging out.
Yeah, and then any platform people. And usually the platform people didn't come by. We had to fucking hunt them down, right?
But we hunted, and that's the important.
But we hunted. Yeah. So I think with all these things, there's no passive thing you can do. It's all, and there's not, I think it's kind of like the whole idea of like going to college versus self-learning. It's like GDC versus like going after, like, where it's like you go to college and like people tell you, here are your options, get on some rails, right? You progress through, you have to make some choices, but you don't have to go after it, right? You have to make choices, you have to work, but you don't have to figure it out. And I think people want GDC to be that kind of experience where it's like, yeah, I go to GDC and then this stuff happens.
Well, I think it's because the price is so fucking high. It has to,
just like college. It feels like it
pipeline me. You put me in that pipe, okay, that you built, and I should get some value out of it. And it's like,
but GDC, just like any industry event period, whether it's player facing or dev facing, that's not how it works. It's not like that. You're not getting a degree on the other side of it, right? They're not gonna. And this like thing with GDC being like, oh, if you're in this high tier, we'll like try to make that happen. I'm skeptical. Maybe we'll, right? But they don't like just do that. So your job at all these things is still, as always, to turn it into something that creates value for you. And if you're coming to it to do that, then there is real opportunity there. There's real opportunity at GDC. There's real opportunity at any of these things, and a lot of value in it. That I think for me, the main thing is, I can't think of a single thing that you can get only at GDC, right? Versus elsewhere that justifies the fact that GDC is by far the most expensive event that we've ever done.
Yes. So I guess your advice then is just go to something, set up contacts in advance. It really doesn't have to be GDC. But if you can afford GDC and it's not a big deal for you, it's fine. Yeah.
But don't just show up. Yeah,
but you still gotta go, and you got to put in the legwork to make those connections in advance.
And if you're a person like me who just like, I don't like talking to random people. Once we get past the random bit, then I have I love talking to people. Yeah. But so it's dealing with that is extremely, and acknowledging that like Yeah, you don't get to just show up and then be like, now the good things will happen. You have to
Mhm.
go with a lot of intention and be extremely uncomfortable, right? Try to figure out how to navigate that stuff. Being told no all the time. Being like we would be hanging out in a circle, like we'd see a circle of devs chatting. We'd like
Oh yeah.
be like, what's going on over here? We like kind of come in, and then very quickly discover like the vibe, like people don't want us in there, right? And so it's like,
oh, you guys know it. We'll just leave. Bye.
yeah, we'll just take off.
Fuck it.
Like you're gonna
Fine.
have a lot of weird social experiences, and that's all part of. It's all part of the stuff you just like have to navigate for these things to become actually valuable. Because there's a lot of just uncomfortable negative bits to it, and it's a lot of intentional effort. So if you do like if you're gonna spend the money for a GDC, that's how you get the value out of it. And there's value there to get.
Go after it.
Yeah, you gotta go after it.
Yeah, it's not really going to just present you with
anything
benefit.
No matter how many AI apps they throw at you, it's not just gonna.
So again,
it's not just gonna fix it.
Same thing applies to all events. GDC is one of them.
Yep.
Yeah. You can get value out of them if you pull it out, if you extract it yourself. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can head on over there and do like a monthly donations, or you can do an individual donation with a message, and we will often read those on the podcast as well. So if you want to do that, you can. We'd also like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DeCoster, for putting the podcast together. Thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, Google Play, the App Store. We got lots of games over there. Our latest game, Crashlands 2. And we also have our upcoming game, How Many Dudes, on Steam that you can wishlist as well. And we'd appreciate that. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.